Good old war propaganda. Just as the news breaks that Trump has issued Maduro an ultimatum to leave Venezuela immediately if he wants to escape with his life, the Murdoch-owned Wall Street Journal has published an amazingly brazen war propaganda piece titled, "How Venezuelan Gangs and African Jihadists Are Flooding Europe with Cocaine." The article begins, "Venezuela has become a major launch pad for huge volumes of cocaine shipped to West Africa, where jihadists are helping traffic it to Europe in record quantities." And then it goes out of its way to note that the Trump administration's pressure campaign against Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro, who it asserts is heavily involved in drug smuggling, has brought global attention to the country's role in the drug trade, end quote. The propaganda piece is plainly aimed at Europeans as well as Americans, emphasizing Secretary of State Marco Rubio's quip last month that the Europeans should be thanking us for blowing up alleged drug boats coming from Venezuela because he says some of those drugs are winding up in Europe. It's got everything. Whipping up international support for a regime change war, fear-mongering about jihadists, the evil, scary dictator, the whole war propaganda sales package. The mass media do this every time the U.S. empire gets war horny, and the Murdoch press are always the most egregious offenders. Reminds me of an old tweet by a man named Malcolm Price. "I remember in the run-up to the Iraq War, a friend I had known all my life suddenly said to me, 'We must do something about this monster in Iraq.' And I said, 'When did you think of that?' He answered honestly, 'A month ago.'" Price's friend had been swept up in the imperial war propaganda campaign that had recently begun, just like countless millions of others. Month after month after month, Western consciousness was hammered with false narratives about weapons of mass destruction, forced associations of Saddam Hussein with 9/11, and stories about how much better things will be for the people of Iraq once that evil tyrant is gone. Normally, it never would have occurred to the average Westerner that a country on the other side of the planet should be invaded and its leader replaced with a puppet regime. That's not the sort of thing that would have organically entered someone's mind. It needed to be placed there. So it was. The most common misconception about the free press of the Western world is that it exists. All the West's most influential and far-reaching news media publications are here not to report factual stories about current events, but to manufacture consent for the pre-existing agendas of the U.S. centralized Western Empire. They report many true things, to be sure, and if you acquire some media literacy, you can actually learn how to glean a lot of useful information from the imperial press without losing your mind to the spin machine. But reporting true things is not their purpose. Their purpose is to manipulate public psychology at mass scale for the benefit of the empire they serve. This doesn't happen through some kind of centralized ministry of truth where sinister social engineers secretly conspire to deceive people. It happens because all mainstream press institutions are controlled either by plutocrats or by Western governments in the form of state broadcasters like the BBC, both of which have a vested interest in maintaining the imperial status quo. They control who the executives and lead editors of these outlets are, and those leaders shape the hiring and editing practices of the publication or broadcaster. Reporters come to understand that there are certain lines they need to color within if they want to get articles published and continue advancing their careers, so they either learn to toe the imperial line or they disappear from the mass media industry. If people had a clear understanding of everything that's really going on in our world, they would tear the empire apart, brick by brick. If they could really see how much evil is being done in their name, and truly wrap their minds around it, and if they could understand how much wealth the plutocrats are getting out of the imperial status quo compared to how little they themselves benefit from it, there would be immediate revolution. So the oligarchs and empire managers shore up narrative control in the form of media ownership, think tanks, Silicon Valley algorithm manipulation, imperial information ops like Wikipedia, and now increasingly through billionaire-owned AI chatbots to ensure that this never happens. The entire empire is built on a foundation of lies. The whole power structure is held together by nonstop manipulation of the way Westerners think, speak, act, shop, work, and vote. If truth ever finds a way to get a word in edgewise, the entire thing would collapse. We know this is true because the oligarchs and empire managers pour so much wealth and energy into manipulating our minds. They're not doing this for fun. They're doing it because they need to. If they didn't need to, it wouldn't be happening. So what they are doing is intensely creepy and destructive, but it's also empowering because it shows us right where their weak spot is. They're pouring all this energy into controlling the dominant narrative because that's the weakest point in the armor of the imperial machine. What we need, then, is a grassroots effort to help truth get a word in. Help people understand that they've been propagandized and deceived about the world by Western media and by their power-serving education systems every day of their lives. Because propaganda only works if you don't know it's happening to you. Sow distrust in the imperial media and institutions. Open people's eyes to the fact that they're being lied to, and help them learn to see the truth. Anywhere the empire is sowing lies and distortions, whether that's in Venezuela or Gaza or somewhere else, use that opportunity to help more people unplug their minds from the propaganda matrix. A better world is possible. The first step in moving toward it is snapping people out of the propaganda-induced coma which dupes them into settling for this dystopian nightmare instead.